sit in here and listen to what it said, so I think I'm going to do that tonight.
Okay, so Valerie asked me to introduce her to you guys, and the first time I met Valerie was in 2005, so I've known her for 15 years.
Wow, that's crazy.
And can you just tell me by a raise of hand who's actually been to this seminar before? So this is new for a lot of you. So that's really cool. I can't probably count the times I've actually done this seminar. This is the wonderful thing about it is it's one of those things where you just want to keep coming back over and over because there's so much great information that you're going to get something new out of it every time. And she's saved my life, and the worst of my times, she was there for me, and I had done the therapy thing, and then I've seen her do these seminars, and here's the thing about this seminar and about Valerie. She has not created these concepts that you're going to see tonight. It is not new, okay? There's been lots of scholars, lots of people that have introduced these ideas to you that you'll be introduced to tonight. But what sets her apart is that she puts it in this amazing order and this amazing diagram and things that make it to where if you feel like you're not good enough or you feel like you can't make it, she makes it to where you feel like it can work for you in your life. And it has worked for me, and it's gotten me through. So if you're feeling like you need therapy, you need this seminar. If you feel like you're happy and you're doing great, you need this seminar. If whatever is going on in your life, you need this seminar because it's going to get you to the next phase, which I believe is most important, is your true self. Okay, so if you just try to enjoy what she's saying and not try to take everything in. But just know, like, she's been inspired and blessed with this information that you're going to see tonight, and I am so grateful for her. And that I spend lots of times talking to lots of people about the concepts that she has and what she's taught me, and I know that she can help you with whatever phase you are in your life at this time. I love her dearly, and I love the concepts that you're going to hear tonight.
Thank you, darling. Yeah, Teresa's the one that has done all of this, like this Limitless. See that little butterfly up there? If you look at it, it actually says VDI, which is my Valerie Dimick Institute. Isn't that cool? She does that. She did that. So what do I do?
Just click down and it'll go to the next build.
Okay. All right. So first of all, hi, darling.
Hi.
Hello. Oh, it's so nice being up here. I see all these faces of people I just love so much. And it's probably going to get really full in here. Maybe it won't. But people are calling saying that they're running late. So I want to introduce Luis. Come here, my darling. He's my co-conspirator tonight. He is an intern, no, a practicum student who's been working with me this whole year, and he's going to be graduating in May, and then he's going to become an intern. In fact, so excited because this site, I just got approved to be a site for intern students. So really excited to have him. He has just taken this like a duck to water, and I'm so excited about what he has to offer. So we're going to take turns going back and forth tonight because he's got to learn this stuff, right? So we're going to have a really good time. So what I do in here is I'm going to be combining scientific evidence with spiritual truths, and then I'm going to give you some therapeutic tools to help you learn how to live your life, having joy, peace, and happiness. And so think of it like this. What I'm going to be showing you tonight is like, you could say it's the roadmap, or you could say, if you're thinking about the gospel, then it is the legend of how to be able to read that roadmap in a way that really you can have joy, peace, and happiness. Because often we find that while we have this strong testimony of God and of of who He is and of this greater plan, we find ourselves not really experiencing the joy, peace, and happiness that we're thinking and that really should be a part of this. Of that experience. And so we're going to talk about, I am going to show you, it's going to be a diagram. You guys are welcome to take pictures of anything up here that you like tonight, that is beneficial to you. But it's just really such a simple way, that something we can return to again and again and again, that really will set us free and allow us to live with joy, peace, and happiness regardless of the situations that we find ourselves surrounded in. So I'm going to start, let's go to this one. So let's talk about happiness for a minute. This is from Aristotle, I believe. No, yep. Happiness is the meaning and purpose of life, the whole aim and end of human existence. Every human, this is what is so fascinating. Every human that has ever lived, we all share one goal in common, just one, and that is we all want to be happy. Now the thing is that each of us have a different idea of how to obtain happiness, but often, because we don't have a correct understanding of how to get there, what we find is that we may take this journey thinking we're heading towards happiness, and then have this big surprise come that we've climbed the wrong tree, or we've taken the wrong path, and it's like, oh my goodness, oops. And so we're going to talk about tonight how to be able to choose really basically any path you want to, but to still be able to find joy, peace, and happiness. So let's take a look at it. I'm going to use kind of this diagram of these pillars, and here's this pavilion where we're going to find, that safe haven. And so we think about a plan of happiness, the plan of happiness, which is in juxtaposition to chaos. All right, and so we have this capacity to live in a state of happiness. And as we live in a state of happiness, it's like this overarching, it's this roof that keeps us safe from the elements. And then the state of misery is in opposition to the state of happiness. And the foundation, which we're going to talk about tonight, is mind mastery or liberty. So mind mastery is internal, learning how to find internal freedom, which then leads to the experiential experience of liberty. Because it is what we think inside that sets us free or not. And then what are those pillars? That's the question. So the pillars we're going to talk about, and here's what's interesting. I'm going to show you the science of these tonight. Isn't that cool? The science of agency, the science of peace, faith, repentance, purpose. It is so cool to understand that science and spiritual teachings have been talking about the same things. They've just used a little bit different language, so we didn't understand. So tonight I'm going to show you how they're actually talking about the same things. So I call my work, this that we're doing tonight, Mind Mastery. I actually have another course that's it's going to end up being, the first is 6 weeks, and that's called Universal Truths. But this is Mind Mastery tonight, and I'm just telling you right now, I've offered this for free for many, many years. And I've offered it for free because I truly just want to help my brothers and sisters on this planet to find joy, peace, and happiness, because we live in really hard times. And these things that I'm teaching you are things that I practice myself. I really practice what I try to teach, what I teach people, and it's changed my life. And it's changed lots and lots of other lives, as Teresa has told you. It does change our life. So learning how to master our mind is so important, and I'm going to show you tonight why. So first of all, we have to know some things about thoughts. The first thing that it's really important to know is that, I want you to look around this room, and I want you to see if you can see anything that did not first begin with someone's thought. Anything? And so you guys have just discovered something really incredibly important, even though it's very simple. And it is this: all of human civilization, at its foundation, is thought. That is the first and foremost thing. And additionally, your thoughts are the foundation of your life. And so, truth, everything begins with first a thought. This hopefully after you leave here tonight, you're going to know more about thoughts than you ever thought possible. And you're welcome to come back as many times as you want to my free seminar and learn. And I'm going to tell you, just this one seminar, if you just use these principles, that alone can change your life. And I've had so many people talk to me about coming to this, and just this one thing has changed their life. So this isn't like a come on to try to get you to take my 6-week seminar. It is a standalone gift to you tonight. So let's talk about thoughts. First of all, somebody want to read these for me real quick? So, okay.
The ability to think is everything, but thoughts are only thoughts. They are not reality. Thoughts only represent a possibility of reality. Thoughts are selected from an external source. They do not originate within you. Thinking is an ability, yet what you think is not reality. It is simply a choice. Example, a bottle of water. The bottle and the water are real. But the moment you think about that bottle of water, well, that thought is only a thought. Your thoughts are not reality.
This is a lot, right? Is there anything up there that surprises you? Like, for example, thoughts are selected from an external source. You don't create them in your head. Crazy, right? Except absolutely true. So we select these thoughts from an external source. And like this bottle of water, it's real. How many are jealous right now? I'm just saying. And it's cold. It's going to be, So each one of us, as this, we see this water, we're going to have different thoughts about it. We're not going to all have groupthink and think exactly the same thought. So the bottle and the water in it is real, but our thoughts are just thoughts, and we all have different ones, even about the very same thing. Is that making sense to everybody? So think of it like this. So you are the selector of your thoughts, and you select thoughts like you select colors if you're going to paint a picture. And your thoughts are the paints and the brushes of life that you're creating your first masterpiece with. So what thoughts you select to think determines actually the circumstances that you create for yourself. It is completely about our thoughts, as you're going to see before we're finished tonight. So while everything begins with first a thought, the thing that is really interesting, and I don't think we've got it on here. So the question that I often get asked is this. Well, if I am really the selector of my thoughts, why do I sometimes choose negative thoughts and other times positive ones? Because I can guarantee you, if I'm really selecting them, I would never choose a negative thought. I don't enjoy those, right? So I'm going to show you why you sometimes choose positive thoughts and other times negative ones. And there's 2 parts to the answer. So part A.
Go. It goes to the bill.
Okay. So part A. First of all, I want you to know something. This is your one true choice. Everything else you ever do in your life is based upon this one true choice. What thought you select to think will determine everything in your life once a series of things take place, which we're going to go through right now. Okay? So we've already talked about this.
Is that me?
Obviously, we've got this a bit out of place. So is this your part?
I think so, yeah.
Okay, so he's now going to talk to you about why you sometimes choose negative thoughts and other times positive, and we've got part 1 up there.
I should have just let her keep going. She would have totally forgot.
Are we even turned on? That sounds good. Okay. We are electrified, let me just tell you.
Okay. So the first reason why, she said there's 2 major reasons. The first one is your world. All of us live in this box, and it really comes down to you don't see your world as it is. You don't see the world as it is. You see the world through your own lens, in essence. We all have our different aspects, and in this box represents our own. There are 3 main components. There's a ton of sub-filters, but there's just essentially 3 main components. So the first one is your true self. That is your core personality. It's who you are, who you've always been, and who you're always going to be. The second part of your box is your experiences, everything you've experienced in your life. And then the third one is your culture. We like to call that the bad boy of the box, and I'm going to explain to you why. And that's actually, well, no, that's still part of the first reason. So your culture. Next one. There we go. First, we like to compare culture to like a fish that, the culture is like the water a fish swims in. The fish does not know it swims in water. It doesn't actually understand that part. Nor does it have a conscious awareness if there is pollution in the water in which it swims. Nor will it know if it's deformed. And nor that the pollution in the water is the culprit. So in essence, when we talk about culture, you're like the fish, and the water is much like the culture. You're not aware of it. You've always been in it. It's not something that you are consciously aware, like this is my culture, this is not my culture. With that, it's easy to see, if you want to know how, it's easy actually to see from another culture. If you're looking at another culture, you can very easily see that, the good and the bad. Well, I don't want to use those words, but you could easily see in another person's culture the differences. But in your own, it's very hard to see. And the reason why that is because of communication. So culture is hard to identify because communication is very different. You guys are going to be very surprised with these statistics. Communication facts. All communication, only about 10% is conveyed verbally. So imagine getting an instruction handbook and you only get 10% of it. There's 100 pages, but you only get 10. You got to know how to do everything in that manual. That's really what it is. You actually verbally only get 10%. That leaves the other 90% to nonverbal communication. And so, we'll keep going. Culture is conveyed almost entirely within that 90% of nonverbal. And like I said, although there's there's a lot of good in one's culture, there's also pollution. And pollution in your culture is the biggest problem in your box. Recognizing the pollution is needful, but again, how do you question something? Again, you only have 10% of the words. 90% of that of culture that was put in you, it wasn't told to you. You just simply learned it through nonverbal communication. So if it wasn't conveyed to you through words, how are you going to question its validity through words as well? Anybody blown away by this? I am. I still am. I've done this quite a bit. So the culture problems that come with it is first, culture, and again, this is not like we're blaming. It's like, now I realize. No, it's to bring awareness. And the first part about the culture is it's unintentional and unrecognized. It is what it is, and that's something to bring awareness. And the second part is there's no words to convey, therefore there's no words to question. Got a picture? Got it? Anybody else want a picture? Next slide's completely new slate, so. Okay, and so the second reason, this is big, so if you have a counter argument, please let Valerie know because she'll explain it.
Actually, this is core to your being able to heal in your life, this next piece.
Yes.
So, yeah, we're not crazy nuts, but we will help prove that. So
we're going to talk about events. And the key thing about events that we have to understand as we move forward is that all events are neutral. Okay? Events are simply things that occur. They are in and of themselves not good nor bad. They just simply are. And how we view them is what makes the difference.
that doesn't even make sense right? Because you guys, I'm sure every one of you can think of things that are like, no, that's really not neutral. That is, but we'll get there.
Mm-hmm. Anybody feeling like that? Yeah. Raise your hand. It's all good. Be honest. There you go. Yes. There we go. Mm-hmm. So to kind of give some perspective to that, we're going to read something. Who wants to volunteer to read it? All right. Thank you. Oops.
Whoa.
Oh, yeah, I'm
almost do it from memory.
You got too anxious there.
And
I'm glad to know I'm not the only one that does it.
An old Chinese farmer lost his best stallion one day, and his neighbor came around to express his regrets, but the farmer just said, "Who knows what is good and what is bad?" The next day the stallion returned, bringing with him 3 wild mares. The neighbor rushed back to celebrate with the farmer, but the old farmer simply said, "Who knows what is good and what is bad?" The following day, the farmer's son fell from one of the wild mares while trying to break her in and broke his arm and injured his leg. The neighbor came by to check on the son and give his condolences, but the old farmer just said, who knows what is good and what is bad. The next day the army came to the farm to conscript the farmer's son for the war, but found him invalid and left him with his father. The neighbor thought to himself, who knows what is good and what is bad.
How do we feel about that?
Does that make more sense? Events are just neutral. It's our perspective and time sometimes that helps us to better recognize.
This is yours.
Really? There's your name on there, but that's fine. I'll take it. I'm happy.
Of the doubters,
Yes.
I've been in this before, and I've never been in the room when somebody wasn't thinking, well, she doesn't obviously understand what's happened in my past, and that wasn't neutral. That for sure is negative. And they're always ahead. So if you feel that way, you're not alone. I don't know, but I've never been in a room where at least a few people didn't think, you know,
Right.
I've had a thing happen and it was clearly bad.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Rich, for that. So have I shown you why sometimes you choose negative thoughts and other times positive ones? Or has Luis done a convincing argument for you? It's just, so then we have these neutral events, we run them through our box, and that determines what thoughts we're going to select to think. This is our agency or our free will. The right to choose what we will think is that. So let's just have a look at this really fast. So agency is, here's the spiritual definition, agency. The scientific or therapeutic definition is thought choice. That's what those two mean. It is the gift and ability to choose what thoughts you will think in any given situation. And understanding that that possibility exists for you is so very important to be able to break free of some of these events that have felt so devastating to us. And we've all had them, every one of us.
Wait, so what is it in our box that helps us decide if I'm going to be negative about it or positive about it?
Well, in our box is our true self, our experiences,
Yeah.
and our culture. That the pollution in our culture is, if it gets triggered when the event is going through it,
Yeah.
then we will choose a negative thought. If it isn't triggered, then we'll choose an uplifting. So it's that pollution in there that becomes the problem. Thank you for that question. That's a good one. Anybody else have, does that make sense to everybody? Okay, so if a negative thought is selected, it will attract other negative thoughts. That will create a negative downward spiral, which I call the vortex. Does that dude look familiar to anything you've ever felt before? Help! Right? So here's some, the vortex is a horrible place to be, and what we need to do is to figure out how to get out of that, because there's a couple of things which I think we covered in here, so I don't want to. Nope, I'm going to just cover it now, and if we come to it, we'll just skip that slide really fast, okay? So, in the vortex, these are some things you need to know. In the vortex, you will have amnesia to all good. You will have amnesia to all good. But in the vortex, you're convinced the way you're thinking is 100% correct. It's not. It is not accurate. I will be showing you that shortly. So you have amnesia to all good, and we have this idea when we get into the vortex, it's a negative downward spiral, but we become absolutely convinced if we just keep diving to the bottom, somehow we're going to find the top. Never will happen. Okay, so on the other side, if you select an uplifting thought, now I'm going to use uplifting and positive interchangeably. I like the word uplifting better, but a lot of times we think negative and positive. Those uplifting thoughts are going to attract other uplifting thoughts, and it's going to create this upward positive spiral. I call that the path of enlightenment, because it leads us to greater and greater truth as we go on. So here's the vortex information now. So here's, who can read this second point? Sabrina, will you read that second point right here?
The whole box or
Just the
point?
second one. Well, yeah, read them all.
Okay. In the vortex, amnesia to all good, a black hole that only sucks you deeper into misery. Any thought selected in the vortex is not actually your own thought.
What do you think of that? Any thought, that's crazy, right? I'm nuts. Any thought in the vortex, any thought you actually select to think is actually not your own thought. Kind of weird. We'll get there. It's absolutely true though. So the second one, who will read this one for me? Abby?
Sure. The very smallest and seemingly insignificant thoughts can throw you into the vortex. You really cannot afford the luxury of any negative thought.
Charlene? Can you read that one?
A solution. Instantly change your thoughts for something uplifting. Different thoughts than the topic that threw you into the vortex in the first place.
Do you understand why you need to choose a different topic that has nothing to do with what threw you in there in the first place? Because you already have selected a negative thought that is a negative downward spiral. Trying to dig your way out of there by finding something positive about that is not going to happen. You can come back to it later, but in that moment you're done. So you just need to pick something else. Okay. Tell me when. Is it you?
Yeah, keep going. I messed up. It's all you.
Huh?
I messed up. You keep going.
I like
He's
something.
gonna do that.
So, as I talked about earlier, this is your thought choice. What you choose to think when you events and then run it through your box. It is your one true choice. So what isn't up here is this. When we allow habit that comes from our box, then the likelihood is extremely high that we're going to end up over here on a regular basis. When anything is triggering the pollution in that box. So we have this option between habit on the one hand and on the other hand, mind mastery. Because mind mastery is I recognize I get to choose in this moment what thought I'm going to think. But once I choose that thought, it is either going to take me down into the vortex or it's going to bring me up into the enlightened path where I can receive the inspiration and insight I need on the issue that is I'm struggling with. But that one true choice is what thought. So we can do this. We're just such a habit of just letting it run that we don't really believe we can actually do this. But this is an incredible gift to us from God. And it's really interesting because we are the only species on this planet that has the capacity to choose from among millions and billions of thoughts which one we're going to select to think. All other species are run by instinct. So, are you sure you don't want to do this? Okay, he's just keep going. I'm gonna throw him into the deep end here in a little bit because he's okay. So here's really important to understand. You get to select whatever thought you want to think, but once you select that thought, you take in this thought from this external source, and that thought will have literally a chemical reaction in your neurons. That chemical reaction will then spill out into your bloodstream and then throughout your entire body, and you will describe that chemical reaction as your feelings. So your thoughts very literally create your feelings. And your feelings will move you to congruent actions. And so, these are the outcomes. Your feelings and your actions are the outcome of your thought choice. And so, whatever thoughts you select to think, this is the seed, your thoughts are the seed, this is the fruit that they produce. We're going to talk about this in just a second because it's so important. In fact, we'll talk about it right now. So I'm just going to say something to you, and then you're going to tell me what I'm trying to tell you, and then you can think for a few minutes I'm crazy. Because for sure, I'm going to tell you that I will prove to you that this is true, okay? But I would have to for sure, because this is going to be way out of the realm of like, there's any way you're going to believe me if I don't prove it to you. But what I'm going to prove to you tonight is that whatever thought you select to think that produces good fruit is accurate. But on the other hand, any thought you select to think that is producing these negative outcomes, that those thoughts are inaccurate. That's kind of crazy, right? But what if I could prove it to you? What difference might this make in your life if I could actually prove this to you? Anybody? What would be different? Huge,
Everything.
right? Because if you know it's inaccurate, these thoughts that have plagued you, you're so convinced it's so horrible it must be true, and I can prove to you that they're inaccurate. What are you willing to do with those? At least start working on doing with those thoughts. Boot them out?
Get rid of.
Get rid of them. Because if they're inaccurate and they're making me miserable, why hang on to them? That doesn't make sense. It's only habit that keeps us stuck there. That's it. Okay, so I'm going to prove this to you, not right in a second, but I will in a minute. Do you see him bossing me around? Oh my gosh. Okay, fine.
I tell you, I'm almost up.
I love talking about this stuff. So, whenever you're getting negative outcomes, 100% of the time, it is a result of fear in your box, which is coming from the pollution in your box. The pollution always will lead to this fear. And that fear is a product of false precepts. These false precepts were foretold a long time ago by a prophet. He said this. He sees our day and he says, "And they've all gone astray, save there be a few who are the humble followers of Christ. Nevertheless, they," meaning the humble followers of Christ, "in many instances do err, because they are taught by the precepts of men." So these false precepts are really the killer. So let me explain to you why they're such a problem. Let's take a look at it. Let's talk about barnacles on your ship of testimony. Okay? So think about the hull of a ship. It is created in such a way to move you swiftly and easily through water, correct? What happens after a ship has been in the water a long time? Barnacles. And what do barnacles create? Drag. Slows the whole process down. It makes that ship work overtime to move through the water. So they have to take it out and scrape all the barnacles off, and then, you know, it can move really well through the water again. Now the question is this. What happens if someone believes the barnacles on the hull of their ship is part of the hull of the ship? Is actually the hull of the ship? Are you going to scrape them off?
A lot of drag.
A lot of drag, because you won't scrape them off. And so this is exactly what happens when we have these false precepts or false beliefs, but they are unidentified. So if we believe them to be part of the ship, the hull of the ship, we're going to leave them on there, and what is it going to create for us? Okay, if your thoughts produce your feelings, and you're now taking in these false beliefs, what kind of feelings are you going to be getting? Negative. And your behaviors are going to follow, and you're going to think, wow, what's wrong with me? Because I know God lives, or I know whatever, and yet I'm not having the outcome I'm hoping for. What the heck, right? So we start to wonder. But it's the barnacles. So it's these unidentified false precepts that are the issue for every one of us. It isn't that any one of us are actually damaged or that there's something wrong with us or that life is too much for us. It is the barnacles that are the problem. So if we can start learning how to scrape them off, we can find that joy, peace, and happiness that is intended for us to have. Are you sure it's still me?
I can go, but yeah, it's you.
He had me skip through his part. So let's talk about these false precepts, because I'm going to show you where they are in the scriptures, okay? So he actually has used them to deceive since the Garden of Eden. And here we have a great scripture if you'd like to read this. Okay.
Mosiah 16:3, for they are carnal and devilish, and the devil has power over them. Yea, even that old serpent that did beguile our first parents, which was the cause of their fall, which was the cause of all mankind becoming carnal, sensual, devilish, knowing evil from good, subjecting themselves to the devil.
So notice this beguiling. It's like just a little a nuance off from the truth. So it gets us even today. And here we see where the effects, I've already read this to you, so where it talks about these precepts of men that are causing this problem. So I won't read that one again. So it's assumptions that our thoughts are accurate that keep us stuck in these deceitful webs. That's the problem. When we assume that these barnacles are part of the hull of our ship, we've got a problem. And we all do this to one degree or another. I'm looking at you, Luis.
I can take the next one.
You're going to do it?
Yeah, after the slide, I'll take it.
He's working me hard. Okay, so as you see, it is, when these negative feelings show up, it's because of fear and those false precepts. The fear is a product of false precepts. Okay? Does that make sense? So what is the answer? The answer is we have to begin to identify those false precepts. Because if we can, and we can replace them with truth, guess what happens? We're going to know it, because what kind of fruit are we going to start to get? Can you see a downside to this? There is no downside to this. This is such an amazing concept. All right, I'm going to keep going. Okay, now I'm back on track. Okay, I see why he's done this. Okay, so this is the thought continuum. All right? There's been lots of people who've written about this over time. My favorite one to share is James Allen. He he was a philosopher back in the 1830s in England. And he wrote this book, which is now online for free. And it's a really tiny little book, so it would take you an hour to just read through it, but to really munch on it, it takes a lifetime of amazing things. So it's called As a Man Thinketh. And all of his works are now online for free. So anyway, so this is the thought continuum. And your thought are the choices, your thought choice are the seeds that you plant. And your feelings and your actions are the fruit of your thought choice. This is going to be very important, so I really have worked to drive this home to you. So you start to understand your thoughts produce your feelings and your behaviors. And that is the foundation of how you create your life for yourself. What else added up there? Did anything?
I don't know.
I think that was just an extra thing. All right. Still me?
I can take it.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Please do.
Okay. I'm just saying, if you guys wanted to teach... Oh.
We needed a little distraction there for a second.
I'm just saying, if you guys try teaching, Albert Einstein's theory of relativity while he's in the room, and see how you feel, okay? So this is just to go over. I'm going to go over just a brief overview of what you've learned so far. This is the thought continuum. There's a thought, there's an event, you filter it, you select a thought, and then outcomes, feelings, and behaviors that come with it. Like Valerie mentioned, that should have popped up, but that's As a Man Thinketh. That's a really good one to kind of give you perspective on thoughts and the nature of thoughts in and of themselves. You now have learned that you have control of your life circumstances because of agency. That you can work on, like, well, I'm going to work on my actions. I got to do the right thing, which we're going to go into later. But it all actually starts with a thought. There was a thought that you selected first before any of that happened, before you started feeling sad or whatever it may be. And then when you choose to think about neutral events in your life, determines how you feel and what actions you are. So, like I said, I'm kind of going over it right now with you guys. In and of itself, all this information is very significant to you. You can choose your thoughts, and this determines your feelings and behaviors. Again, this is a common mistake, or this is a common thing we all do. We try to, I gotta feel happy. I gotta be happy, right? And we're looking at the wrong section of this process, and we got to go back to the very beginning and the very basics. Is this where I think we're going?
Yeah, you're going to have to let me do. So I'm not going to let him do the next part because I get really excited about the next part.
I was all getting ready.
Yeah. I can see why he kept, yeah, whatever. Go ahead.
Okay, so she, this, okay, so what she's going to talk about next is this is the meat of it. This is the proof. This is the pudding to it. And so when she introduces it, again, she's all about energy. She needs good energy in the room. I need you guys to do me a favor. When she says the statement, I need you to clap like your favorite team just won the Super Bowl. I need you to clap like you just got that job, like I did this week. I need you to clap. I need you to clap. I need you to be so excited because you may not feel it, but you will see why in a second.
Yeah.
Why that is.
Don't push that button yet.
I won't.
Hold on, I gotta
Hold
start
on.
this over again.
Oh, sorry.
Told you not to push that button.
I know.
Okay. No, I am so totally excited about this. This really is the beginning of what makes all of this so incredible. So, hold on to your seats. All right, you can't hold on to your seats and clap at the same time. But I'm just telling you, this is amazing. You ready? Go ahead. I can't do that. You have to.
I know. Here we go.
Oops.
Here we go.
Up. Oh,
This
that
is
was
why
my
she
thought.
works alone. Almost. All right, last one. Ready?
Whoa! I am telling you, once I get done, you're going to be like, that is rocking cool. I know right now you're like, okay, he built up for, all right, that is interesting, but why is it that cool, right? So you're going to see. Thoughts are energy. Next button, please. Next. Okay, so energy works like this. Energy is measured in a wave or a frequency, okay? That wave or frequency, so energy at its power source. So first of all, a couple of things about energy. One is all energy has a power source. That just kind of makes sense, right? Someplace it begins from. And then second, energy is measured this way. It's always at its most powerful state, closest to its power source. Does that make sense? Right? And so I want you to think about this. So we think about thoughts in terms of, we can say positive or uplifting versus negative. So if your thoughts are energy and they're now subject, is this where it says the second? So I've just described for you the second law of thermodynamics, okay? Our thoughts are subject to the second law of thermodynamics. Another term for that is entropy, which simply means energy starts at its highest energy state and moves to its lowest energy state. That's all it means. But we're subject to it. So if we are the selector of our thoughts, we're selecting this thought energy, but we're not doing anything with it. We're just using it passively, like, you know, how many thousands of years was solar energy just used passively by humans? So, you know, it just would start each day, nice heat, and then by the end of the day cold, but we couldn't use it beyond in a passive way. But now we've learned how to do that different, haven't we? We've learned now how to reactivate solar energy so that we can actually use it in some really incredible productive ways. Well, the truth is that the same applies to our thoughts, that we actually have this capacity to continually move the thoughts we're choosing to think back up into a high energy state. But because we live in a world that is subject to the second law of thermodynamics, what is happening to our thoughts over time? If we think of them in positive and negative terms, what's happening to our thoughts over time? If we do nothing with them. Man, I'm out of shape. That hurt. I need some muscles there. Okay, it's just going to get more negative. That's what's going to naturally happen. Not because there's something wrong with us, but because that's just what energy does. And if we are just letting habit take over, what's going to happen? You don't coast uphill, right? It's just not going to be. So if that's happening to our thoughts, what's happening to our feelings? Right? It's going to get worse and worse. We're just going to get more and more negative feelings. And what's going to happen to our behaviors? We're going to start to just see that trend. It's just going to happen, not because we're bad people, but because our thoughts or energy is our one true choice. And what we choose to think is going to determine everything else in our life. Okay? So now the second question, let me see what's coming up next.
There's thought energy.
Okay, so he's going to show you, we can just skip through this really fast because I did a much better job doing that, right? So go ahead. zip through it. Just go, go, go. I've talked about all this. Look, I even agree with what it said in there. I didn't say that. It ends in inert uniformity or nothingness. Okay, that's where energy ends. So, keep going.
Oh.
So, since thoughts are, well, I already talked that. Go on. So the next question is, since all energy has a power source, what would you guess the power source of your thoughts are?
God.
Anybody else have any ideas? Oh my gosh, you did not.
Sorry.
He has just lost control of the controller. Oh my heck.
You're fired.
He is blushing under that tan of his. You're good. Or somebody's being fired. No. Okay, we got to keep going. So sad.
Yeah, that's what it's like.
The answer is God. I mean, think about this. There is scientific evidence. There was this amazing study done back in the 1950s. Why we are not yelling, like shouting this from the rooftops is beyond me. So here I am shouting it from the rooftops to you. And it's why I consistently share this message for free. Because we need to understand what we have been given and the power that is available to us. Because God is the power source. And it's interesting because we learn in the scriptures, he tells us he's a God of how much power? All power. So he's been telling us from the beginning, but it took till the 1950s for science to catch up and go, oh yeah, that's really actually true. Really actually true. That's pretty cool. So now I'm gonna have to, you haven't even seen this one, because I slipped these slides.
Oh, I'm gonna just
seen them.
take my seat then, because
Okay. You better. I'm telling you, you're in trouble. So we're going to put this over here. So thoughts are energy. God is the power source. What does this mean for you guys? You have the right to choose what thoughts you think. So what does it mean for you? What does it actually mean? Yes.
It means that as we turn back and keep turning back and keep turning back to God, we keep having more and more renewal of power and uplifting vortex.
Up the enlightened path, right? Isn't it fantastic? Isn't it amazing? What?
Testimony.
Yes, it just increases and increases and increases over time. It is so amazing. And we are just a thought away from this. We are just a thought away from this. And breaking habits. That's the part that doesn't make this a simple process. But it is that actually simple.
Talking, praying.
Say that again?
Praying to him.
Yes. That brings us back into that pure energy state. It is so amazing. Okay. What's coming up next? So let's talk about the power source. So it's important to know that light and energy are synonymous. You could say light and you're saying energy, or you could say energy and you say light. And so in science we use the term light, and in spiritual terms, in science we use the word energy, but in spiritual terms we always use the term light. But they're talking about exactly the same thing. Exactly the same thing. And so when you honor the principles of energy, okay, to honor the principles of energy is to harness it. So we could say honoring light, or we could say harnessing energy. It's saying exactly the same thing, and what it says is that this is how we tap into pure power that God has provided and intended for us. That's so amazing. Energy or light harnessed as power. So we just have to understand, it is so cool to realize that simply honoring truth, and I'm going to show you how to be able to honor truth tonight. You tap into pure power, and literally this is the stuff miracles are made of. It's so amazing. Okay. So let's read these. Who would like to read this one? We don't have to read the references, just the...
Okay. Let every soul be subject unto the higher powers, for there is no power but of God. The powers that be are ordained of God.
So here he tells us something that now science has proven to be true. Next one. Who wants to read this one?
No,
Oh, it didn't come up? You're in the doghouse still, so I'm sure you did this too. I'm kidding. He knows I'm teasing. Who'd like to read this one? Okay.
Behold, and hearken unto the voice of him who has all power, who is from everlasting to everlasting, even Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end.
So here we have another one. This one, who would like to read this one? Somebody from the back? Okay, Amy?
And it came to pass that Adam, being tempted of the devil, for behold, the devil was before Adam, for he rebelled against me, saying, Give me thine honor, which is my power.
Look at that. There he tells us, give me thine honor, which is my power. So he's telling us what we need to do too when we honor truth. Go ahead.
And also a third part of the hosts of heaven turned he away from me because of their agency.
Okay. I think we have one more. Heidi, would you?
This then is the message which we have heard of him, and declare unto you, that God is light, and in him is no darkness at all.
Isn't this crazy? Did you know that darkness doesn't actually exist? That sounds kind of weird, right? But actually, darkness is just a term they use to describe absence of light. It's kind of cool. Okay, so here we have. So now my question for you is, if God has all power, how much does that leave for the opposing team? Zero. You guys ever been taught that? Like, that's pretty crazy. Like, well, wait a minute. So I want to explain it. God is the only power source. But there are two opposing teams. But there's only one source of power. Now, why is that significant to know?
Wait, is it significant?
Yeah.
So,
Well,
Hold on.
my thought is, you just mentioned that there's no darkness, it's just an absence of light.
Mm-hmm.
So what would be no power would just be the absence of God.
Right. So actually, so I call Satan and his followers the minions of misery, right? They're minions. They don't have a physical body. They can't ever act. They are just minions. So you think about it, they actually have no power, personal power. That's kind of liberating to realize. But on the other hand, how do they get their power? So I'm going to give this to Luis. You touch that button wrong and you are so busted.
We should probably go on a break.
Huh?
Break.
No, we'll do this part. We'll finish this.
Okay.
When we get to the two different sides, we'll break.
So, did you add more? You did add more.
Where'd that come from? Okay. Do you see this down here?
If you did see the animation. Right. So, she talked about that there is no power, there's only one power source. But what happens with power is as it goes away from the power source, the waves spread out and it's more susceptible for what we call corruption. And that's essentially what could happen to your thoughts, is it's corruptible energy. In this energy, there is truth. In every thought that you have that brings you these negative emotions, there is a kernel of truth within them. But the problem is that it's polluted with corruption that we talk about. So false precepts are a product of polluted thought energy.
So let me just explain this just a little bit better. We're going to give him props because he's doing really good. This is scary to be up here. You've done it a few times. So all energy comes only from God. He only is the creator. The minions cannot create anything. They can only design lies around it. And the reason we buy into those lies is exactly what Louise said, which is there's kernels of truth running through it. So we go, oh, it must be true. So if we don't understand what we're going to show you here in a minute of how to be able to identify truth, we're going to get sucked into this. Because there's always kernels of truth in it. Because they can't create energy. They can only pollute it by corrupting it with just ever so slightly off of the truth. So they really screw with our brains. if we don't understand what's going on. Sorry,
No.
go ahead, go back.
And then this is just another scriptural reference. Would you read that, anybody? Just,
Me too.
yeah.
Thoughts
No.
are energy, and God is the power source.
So that's just a extra read.
Yeah. So the question is, here's the question that we didn't answer yet. If the minions have no personal power, then they sure seem to do a heck of a lot of damage. Where do they get their power from?
Us,
Us. How do we give it to them?
get into temptation.
By choosing thoughts that have been corrupted by them and believe them to be the truth. That comes because of the pollution in our culture. Do you see that simple pattern? Anybody not see that? Make sense to everybody? It's kind of it's okay. I can never say that again. No. So thoughts, no, the minions have no personal power. They gain it from us by us choosing to believe their corrupted thoughts, the corrupted thought energy that they are constantly trying to bombard our mind with. These corrupted thoughts match the false beliefs that are in our culture that have come to us intergenerationally, so we're so convinced they must be true. Does that make sense?
Can you give an example?
That's a really good question. I need to come prepared with an example.
We have plenty coming in.
Do we? Mm-hmm. Okay. I guess we have plenty coming in. If we don't answer it, Sabrina, then we'll come back to it and I'll give you an example because there's lots of really simple ones. Yes?
I'm just thinking like, I'm a teenager and I asked somebody to the prom and that person rejected me. I must be unworthy.
It must be me.
It must be
Very
me.
good.
I must not be whatever.
Right.
And that is a corrupted thought that we choose. That.
Select to think. Exactly. Whereas the truth might be any number of things, like this kid has social anxiety and couldn't go out with anybody if he wanted to. Or he's grounded and he doesn't get to go to prom and he doesn't want to admit to anybody because that's embarrassing. Or, yes?
So what in his culture makes him initially jump to that?
Well, for every person it's going to be different, but at the core it's the false beliefs that we have. And that's a good question because I can tell you, like for example, the core fear of every human being. Do you want to know what it is?
Rejection.
You're not good enough. I'm not good enough. Fear? I'm not good
Fear.
Not good enough.
Rejection.
The fear of not being good enough. Now, you say rejection. See that, if I was good enough, would I ever be rejected? For other people, it might be failure. If I was good enough, would I ever fail? No. And we could just go on and on. So we all could name it something a little different, but I promise you at the very core of it is our fear that we are not good enough. So.
Yeah, another example, just to quickly go, for example, and children have this a lot. You got to correct your children sometimes, right? But sometimes what happens is this culture is it's conveyed, this child gets corrected, they get some kind of punishment or whatnot. The corruption is, instead of like, okay, this is what you did, this is the natural cause of what the effect of it, it's the child doesn't say, I did, this bad thing is what I did. They start saying, I'm bad. That's where their corruption starts being. That's where they start to feel not good enough. Because essentially you're not punishing their character, or you're not punishing, you love your kids, right? That's not something but the message that they receive sometimes is, well, I'm bad then, because that must have happened to me, and therefore I'm bad. So that's probably a good example, I think, of thought energy. Oh, we lost our connection.
Yeah, well, I just have to say, what you thought was coming up, I took out, so he's not going to. He's going to be like, where'd that go? Where'd that go? Because I took it out. All right, so you're going to reset it, and I'm just going to be talking about this. Okay. Or has it come back up already?
Yes, it's ready.
Okay, go ahead. So let's just go through this really fast because we need to. This is the last one, and then we're going to take. No, it's the last two. We have 2 more slides to go through, and then we're going to take a break, a 10-minute break. There are restrooms back in this back corner, and in the break room there is a water cooler and cups there. So if you want water, you're welcome to it. And there's fresh air out front. So if you want that. We don't even charge for that. It's kind of cool. Okay. Okay, hold on. So, is this the one I thought it was?
That's what's next.
No. Okay, so we have 4 more slides. They're short, kind of. Okay, just keep going through this because we've really talked about this stuff. So we can just, this one I want you to think about. So in the scriptures, entropy is called the fall. Again, talking about the same thing, right? And the end result of entropy in scientific terms is inert uniformity or nothingness. In scriptural terms, it's hell, nothingness, or outer darkness. So it's just talking about the same things, just using different terms. Okay, let's go. All right. So what are we doing on this one, Louise? Oh, you're announcing, but that shouldn't be there yet. Oh, you're up here. We did not have time to rehearse this. We have been back-to-back craziness, so thank you for being patient with us. So here we see the whole picture put together. What comes up next? Just surprise me. Oh, we just did that. Okay. All right. This is important to know. Nothing negative originates from God. So on the surface, this sounds kind of no-brainer, or does it? Does it make sense?
Yeah, makes sense.
Except, I bet you many of you in here don't actually believe this. You want me to tell you why? Of course you do. Okay, nothing negative originates with God. But how often do we say, God sent us this trial?
A lot.
If that is true, can actually anything negative originate from God?
That's true, yes.
It can't. He does not send us trials, afflictions, and difficulties. So so I'm going to give you a really simple thing. You see, God has foreseen all those things. But foreknowledge is not causation. That's important to know. Foreknowledge is not causation. Just because he saw it does not mean he caused it. But he will use it to help us. How we perceive it is a product of our thought choice, right? So, but he tells us that he prepared everything. This is in Hebrews 4:3. He said, everything was prepared and finished from the foundation of the world. He saw everything then. And he also prepared an anecdote for everything that would come into our life. Prepared and finished. So think about it. We're sitting here thinking, oh, God helps us by sending horrible things. This is a terrible thing because, boy, it really makes us sometimes very iffy on if we want to go to him for help, right? It's like, is it going to be the good one this time, or am I going to get that prize? So you start to wonder. So I'm telling you, you don't have to worry about that because he doesn't send booby prizes. He doesn't send surprises, right? Everything he has done for us is for us to have joy in our life. Everything. He has seen everything and put everything in place to make up the difference for any lack, prepared and finished from the foundation of the world. Foreknowledge is not causation. And it is so joyful to know that he prepared every wonderful thing for us. And the better we get at believing in him, the more we will find those things coming into our life. When we experience fear, well, we're going to keep those barnacles on our ship and we're going to get to be right about the misery in our life. But it doesn't have to be that way. And so nothing negative originates from him. That is so important to know, so liberating, right? So let's think about it. We're going to talk about this. Go ahead. You can do these.
Okay. So just some facts. He dwells in pure light and pure energy. He is the refiner's fire. In scriptural terms, like we talk about it, he is also the embodiment of love.
He isn't just, he is a loving God, but he is more than that. He is the very embodiment of love. It is so much more inclusive.
And like I said, all negative thought comes from downgraded, polluted thought energy. So once it comes down here and the wavelength gets away from the energy source, that's when that corruption happens. Somebody else want to read the next ones that are coming up? Anybody? Please, thank you.
Yet when thought energy leaves the power source, it is pure and unpolluted. However, as it moves away from the power source, the wave gets lower and further apart. Pollution from the minions of misery can then enter in. An example of how this works is the sun.
Okay, so there's a couple more on that. It's going to repeat itself, but it's better just to explain it as is. So we're far enough away from the sun that it could sustain life where Earth is. Okay, because if we were any more closer to the sun, we would be essentially disintegrated because it's pure light, it's pure energy. And so we're at the perfect part, at the perfect distance from the sun where we can still feel warmth. But if you go to any cold place like Idaho or any place that it snows, it can be still sunshine, and you're wondering,
You can tell who spent some time.
Spent my time in those snow. If you ever been in a cold place, it can be like in the negatives, right? And then there's the sun shining right there, and you're gonna say, and somebody who doesn't know, you're gonna be like, you're telling me that the sun warms us up because I don't feel very warm right now, right? Because we're at that perfect state. It's almost symbolic that we are at a perfect distance where that sun energy, that light, it can be easily twisted and polluted where it's cold, or the absence of heat, or the absence of light. Does that make sense? There's a lot of symbolism with that. And so that's really the comparison with the sun. Energy close to the sun is in its purest and powerful state. Anything polluted that comes near the sun it'll disintegrate. It'll completely turn into its first state, which is energy.
I remember as a little kid, that they would talk about the rocket ship going back toward the sun, and how a rocket ship could never reach the sun because it would melt back to its original elements. So nothing can originate there, which is so important for us to know. Why?
So yeah, reading this, why is this important? Why would this be important to know?
How could it increase your faith and confidence in God?
It's not even possible to have faith in a thing that isn't perfect, because you always hold some doubt that maybe he won't be there for me. This will be that 0.1% of the time.
Thank you. And I want you to think about this. If he really planned problems for us, wouldn't that be predestining us to them? And what would happen to free will or agency if that's the case? It wouldn't exist. Foreknowledge is not causation, but so much hope because he has seen it, and because of his love, he's made up the difference for every lack in our life. If we choose, as you'll see here in a little bit, one simple thing. I'm not giving too much away because I want you coming back after the break.
Will you continue reading?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
As energy moves away from the sun, its waves get lower and further apart. By the time solar energy reaches the Earth, its waves have lengthened out enough that they can sustain life without destroying it. However, in this downgraded state, solar energy can be polluted. All energy, including thought energy, originates with God, as in the example of the sun. At the power source, thought energy is pure and unpolluted. The feelings and actions this pure thought energy will produce can only be good and uplifting. Yet, like solar energy, as thought energy moves away from the power source, it can be polluted. This polluted thought energy is often painfully mistaken for truth. Polluting thought energy is how the minions deceive.
Make sense so far? Feeling some hope? I hope. Okay, we're going to take a 5-minute break. So let's go ahead and issue.
See, I'm claiming. There we go.
I'm having a hard time believing you.
All right, so this next part, I'm actually way more versed in, so we're going to definitely talk about that. What we're going to talk about, so we've talked about your thoughts, your events, your box, the process, and energy. And now we're going to kind of put it together and show you exactly why that is. This is the science. This is the answers you've probably been coming to wait for.
Well, we're going to be, yeah, go ahead.
Yes.
Oh, whoa.
Is this you?
Yes, this is me. See, he thought he knew where I was.
I was good.
So now I'm going to prove to you what I said before, right? I told you, remember? So right over here, pure energy, right? Nothing negative can originate from there, correct? So if we are selecting thoughts that are coming from this pure energy, what can we know about them? Would it make sense that they have to be accurate? because they're coming from pure energy. There's no pollution in them. Additionally, on the other hand, if we are getting these negative outcomes in our feelings and our behaviors, no matter how real and sucky, because it's terrible because we really believe it must be true, it is, we know it's coming from this corrupt energy because it's producing negative outcomes. So have I proved it to you? Did you think that was going to be possible before we got started here? But there you see it. It's very simple. So, are you willing to begin to make these changes for yourself? Are you willing to begin to recognize, no matter how real this thought seems, it is producing, it's throwing me into the vortex, it's producing negative feelings, my behaviors are the ones I don't like, that I'm afraid of what they mean about me, and therefore, but they have to be inaccurate. So are you going to be very courageous and kick them out? You willing to start working on that? This is really important because, you know, courage isn't not having fear, right? Courage is being really scared and doing things anyway. So, like, it takes a big leap to say, okay, these aren't real. But I really encourage you to try because it will really begin to change your life. So, now he's up.
No. So we keep talking about pollution, negative thoughts. We keep talking about very abstract. I love this part, not because it's like the best experience ever that we have, but I love it because we're all going to relate to it very, very quickly. It's going to be super easy, and that's why I love actually talking about. So this is the negative thought continuum. This is what happens. So this is the framework right here. On the right side is going to happen when we select a negative thought or that has pollution in it or corrupted energy. So the thought itself has a characteristic. It's going to be carnal and it's going to be apparently noble. And I'm going to explain to you in a second what the trademark of that is. Yeah.
I was just going to say carnal thoughts. This is what in the scriptures it says to be carnally minded. And in today's world, we've really narrowed down what carnal means. But back in the day, carnal meant all negative thoughts, all negativity, not just the narrow focus that we now look at it. So that's really important to know. I call those thoughts, because everybody that's here, if you're here, it means you really fall into this category that I call apparently noble thinking. Because it sounds really good, but only apparently so. And it's really what's getting you into trouble. Okay?
And the concept to bring that is a light bulb. This is like our favorite part of it. Remember, who has all power? Right, so do we have all the power? No, right? We are just simply conduits, okay? We are essentially light bulbs. That when we're completely in sync and we're at the power source, we are in that synergy state with God. And then that's when we're able to feel, that's when we're lighting up. But that's all we essentially are. We're light bulbs. And when we're plugged into the power source, which is God, we light up. That's when we feel the path of enlightenment. It's when we start worrying about ourselves, saying, you know, I'll go to the next one. I'll show you what it is. Is this you?
I don't know why it's in there again.
Okay, this is a repeat. That's fine.
Maybe just to harass you.
Yeah, wouldn't be the first.
It's true. We get along very well.
Okay, maybe it's not in there. Well, I'll explain it anyway. So these kinds of thoughts, they're, like she said, it's apparently noble. Example, and I'm gonna say the word, you finish the sentence. I should.
What's a should you've got?
Exercise.
I should exercise. Mom, I should what?
I should exercise.
Okay.
I'll go with her.
Vina, I must.
Get more work done.
Right.
Yeah.
It's all about me.
I can't.
Back in the house. Have patience.
Okay.
And as one of my professors say, stop shoulding all over yourself. It's, you know, you say I should, I must, I could. if you're doing that, you got to realize you're already within. You're having the characteristics that apparently noble, because you're saying I should be finishing my paper when I get home today, right? That's just kind of the things we tell ourselves. But what it produces when we
Hold on, let's stick with apparently noble for a second.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds really good, right? I should exercise more. I should pray more. I can't eat that pizza. It all sounds great, except the problem is, where's the focus of attention? Me. And where isn't your focus of attention, since you can only think one thought at a time?
Christ.
On the power source. So in that moment, no matter how well intended we are, when we focus on what we should, must, can't, won't, whatever, right? We're focused on ourselves, but we're just light bulbs. We only can be a conduit to a later or lesser degree of the light that comes from God. And so the focus is on us. By default, it's not on God. And so what kind of energy do we end up taking in? Low grade. And of course, then we just beat ourselves up over and over again. Okay, so, sorry.
No, yeah, and here's the explanation of what it means to beat ourselves up. So we start to have, we start to have a feeling. We selected that thought, and then out comes a sensual feeling.
Sensual feelings is what the scriptures call it, right? Sensual meaning of this earth or earthly feelings.
Okay. And the key to it is the first thing that you're going to feel no matter what sensual thought or feeling that you have, you're first going to experience fear, because that is the father of all negative emotions. You first felt fear before you felt whatever it is you felt after that.
Mm-hmm. Everything else are secondary emotions. We first experience fear and then something else. And think about anger. Anger is a secondary emotion, because feeling fear is kind of like I'm a puddle on the floor kind of thing. There's nothing I can do with it. What can I do with anger? I can push it out here in some way or another. And so it helps me to get away from it. But all of our other feelings are all secondary emotions. Fear is the father of all negative emotions.
And then once you start feeling fear, you start feeling these other three. And you're all familiar with it: depression, guilt, anxiety. And it's not even just like formal depression or you start to feel guilty about something you did in the past. You start to feel low. You start to feel anxious. You start to worry about what's going to happen next, or you're thinking about the past and you're looking at regret. So
I just want to say about this is also fear comes first before, let's say, lust or pride. Now those are ones you wouldn't think, right? But actually those feelings are a product of first fear. And I want you to look at this. Notice guilt is over there. I mean, is that kind of surprising? Kind of liberating? Because guilt does not come from God. This is so great to know. We'll get to what the counterpart to that is, but very important to realize those feelings are not, that guilt or whatever that is not coming from God, and all these other feelings are a product of thought choice, and it's the pollution in the culture that is really leading to this. Okay? So. And
like she said about thought or feelings, all negative feelings are counterfeits for true emotions. Guilt is one of them. It's a counterfeit. It's not actually something that really comes from God, nor does it really empower you to actually get to that point where you want to be in your life. And so, okay, that's perfect. Why would knowing, for example, guilt comes from a polluted thought energy be important to you? Who has an answer?
I can stop feeling guilty.
Yeah, because nobody in here really beats themselves up all the time, right? Of course not.
Never.
Mm-hmm. So being able to know we can let go of that is not liberating at all, right? I didn't think so.
So after we've experienced these things, remember, feelings and actions, when you have your emotions, you're going to have congruent actions after that. You can't switch that up. And so then that's what we define or term devilish actions.
Okay, this is all from the scriptures. Think about it. Carnally minded, it tells us, leads to sensual feelings of this earth or earthly, which leads to devilish actions. Devilish actions are directional, not destinational. I'm either doing things that are more godly or I'm doing things that are more devilish, right? It's not directional. It's just a way of defining negative behaviors.
And then we also coined this your weaknesses, essentially.
Okay. Are you going to do this or are you going to let me?
I got this.
Okay.
This is really small, so I'm going to just put it up on the big. Somebody read this really loud, really good and proud for me. Alan.
Your weaknesses are not part of your core personality. Are they?
They are, sorry. That
They
R doesn't
are.
belong in there because this is my weakness showing up.
They are what you do when you experience fear.
Think about this, my darling friends. Who else wants to read this loud and proud? Okay, read it with feeling.
Your weaknesses are not part of your core personality. They are what you do when you experience fear.
Do you understand how powerful this is to you? How much of our life do we spend defining ourselves by our weaknesses and then feeling guilt and beating ourselves up relentlessly? We're like the Opus Dei people. You know who they are? They're the people within the, I'm not going to say, because we don't need to talk about religion, but they use cat o' nine tails to beat themselves with, right? We metaphorically beat ourselves with that cat o' nine tail all the time. As long as we're believing that our weaknesses are part of who we are, they are not. Yes, they are things we do, that is true, but they are things we do only when we experience fear, at no other time. They have nothing to do with the truth of who we really are. That is so liberating for you. For all of us.
How do
this
we
has
feel
changed
about that?
my life.
Yeah. Anybody have any input? How do you feel about that?
Okay, here's another reason it's important. I'm sorry, I can't stay down. Here's another reason this is so important. Because when we understand, see, as long as I think I'm my weaknesses, how hard is it going to be for me to face those weaknesses, to try to heal from them? Oh my gosh, it's going to be impossible. Because it just feels like, oh my gosh, I'm saying I'm not enough, and I can't admit that to anybody. But if we really understand, okay, I do those things. I learned them intergenerationally. They're not me. I can look at those. I can do the work necessary to be healed and free of them. Yes.
So that's kind of my question. Is fear doesn't necessarily have to be a present thing. It can be like a deep embedded thing that you might not have encountered initially. So we were talking about like disciplining a child. So initially, like, my reaction would be to yell at my kid or express some anger because of something he did. But I'm not fearing anything at the moment. Just this
that you recognize.
That I recognize. It could be this embedded, like you're saying, cultural response
Yes.
due to my upbringing.
Yes, and it's coming from our subconscious. I get into that really a lot in the Universal Truth Seminar, which we didn't talk about. If any of you guys are interested in that, please let me know, because we do a bunch of this. We do this, but just on steroids. So show you how really life works, and it just makes so much sense as you start to put all these pieces together, understand where it came from, the possibilities for healing, how I can heal, those kind of things. It's really exciting. I love it. Yes, did you have your hand up?
Oh,
Jen?
I was just stretching.
Oh,
Sorry.
okay. I think I need to stretch too. Okay.
Did that answer your question? You sure? Okay. So this next part, I've talked to you about the negative thought continuum. Valerie, in her wisdom, is going to talk about the positive. And this is like the best part. This is going to make you feel warm and fuzzy, and you're going to feel not so guilty. And you know what? I still learn from it too. So this is her part next.
Yeah, so I'm really excited, and I would have grabbed this from her if you hadn't given it to me. So, you know, understanding thoughts are energy. This is so thrilling. You start to realize why, you know, I kind of joke around about it, but boy, we should be so thrilled to understand this, because everything changes. So now we're going to talk about that other side. Like, we can constantly re-tap into this, right? So here we go. So first of all, important to know that agency is simply thought choice. So we have this right to choose, or free will, okay? And that faith is simply choosing thoughts that are focused on God, His light and truth. That's faith. It's how simple it is. Is there anybody in here that can't do that? No one. It is such a simple thing. And we can return to it again and again and again and again. So we're going to put faithful thoughts up there. Should be faith thoughts, but I'm not going to be particular about that because it's my fault. I should have changed that. But faithful thoughts. That is that one true choice. It's really interesting because God actually teaches us that He works by faith or thoughts. He said, let there be light, and oh, voila, there was light. He works by faith. We can learn to work by faith because by that everything comes into life. Well, think about it. This is all just kind of previews of what I'm going to be, what I do in UTS, but think about this. Is not everything created out of energy? Yeah. So, some really cool stuff that you start to learn how we are literally apprentice creators. And so, as we choose faith, God set the example for us. He chose faith. Faith is trusting in what you can't see, but which is real. And it's simply thoughts that are focused on that. He knows how to do that perfectly. He honors that. And that is His power. So, enough about that, because I forgot what else I was going to say. It was good, though. I want to assure you. So, can you exercise faith? It is such a simple thing. And as we do this, we move from one level of faith to the next, or in one level of understanding to the next, to the next, to the next, of light and truth. It's pretty darn cool. Okay, so we're going to talk about, so I'm going to tell you the most faithful thoughts we can ever have are those who look to Christ, and here's why. So the first reason, I'm going to have people read these, so Christy, would you read next, darling? Okay. Do this and you read all these. So here's the first reason.
Christ overcame the world.
And here's the,
Literally, Christ overcame the second law of thermodynamics.
and so here we have it. See, here in the scriptures is now matching up with science. Look at this.
John 16:33. These things I have spoken unto you, that in me ye might have peace. In the world ye shall have tribulation, but be of good cheer. I have overcome the world.
There he is telling us. Is that not so cool? It is so cool.
He is the only way back to the power source, who is God.
Okay, here it is.
John 14:6. Jesus saith unto him, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man cometh unto the Father but by me.
So cool. All right, so the second there's a second reason for looking to Christ. Who wants to do this one? Oh, here's one more. He is the light that has created all things. So let's do the next one now. Second reason. Who wants to read these? Okay.
He is the Spirit of truth. He is the master carpenter working with the master architect, who knows the beginning, middle, and end.
Kind of cool to think about. Isn't it interesting that he actually came to this earth as the carpenter's son, right? And literally, he works with God, who has seen all things, prepared everything, and he was the master carpenter on it. I just think that's so cool.
He sees 100% of the possibilities and knows the right answer. You know a fraction of and have a billionth of a possibility of being right.
Literally, through science, it is literally that much. A billionth of a chance of being right.
Are you willing to base your assessment of truth on a billionth of a chance you are right?
Are you? Statistically. So, Vina, you know a little bit about statistics, right? Is a billionth of a chance you might be right a good percentage to choose to
No.
No, it's truly not, right? I mean, it's kind of interesting because we say, listen, be realistic. You know, just trust what you see with your eyes. Look, that's the way it is. Is it? Actually, do you know how much light we see out of all the light that exists? 1/1000th of 1%. That works out to a billionth. So, in any given moment, you are seeing 1/1000th of a chance. 1/1000th of all the possibilities that exist. I go into more detail in the other seminar as to why that's true. It's so cool. But 1/1000th of a chance you might be right. Are you willing to assess your assumption of what is correct on a billionth of a chance you might be right?
If you're smart, no.
If you are smart, no, is the right answer. Okay, so here we have it. So faithful thoughts, and again, the most faithful thoughts we can ever have are those that look to Christ, look to God, trust in what has been done for us, even though we cannot see it currently. Okay, those produce hopeful feelings. Okay, now here is everything I've been working with you guys and talking to you about is leading up to this next thing, because this is the rock star of it all, which is kind of hard to believe since God is a power source, thoughts are energy. I mean, we've covered some pretty cool stuff, but this really is it. And here's why. Because, you know, Luis threw a little thing in over here and you guys just didn't even catch up on it. But he said all negative feelings are counterfeit for true emotions. So if that's true, how do I know truth from false precepts? And how do I know the accurate from the inaccurate? If I've got all these counterfeits over here. Well, here's how. Here's why. You ready? Because as it turns out, there is one feeling and one feeling only that cannot be counterfeited. That can only be produced when we are taking in pure energy. It cannot be faked over here. Just one feeling. And that one feeling is?
Peace.
Peace. Peace is God's covenant to us of truth. Or we could say in scientific terms, his litmus test. Now remember, feelings are a product of our thinking. So if we are taking in pure thought energy, what feeling are we going to get 100% of the time? Peace. If we're not getting peace, it doesn't matter how real our thinking is. It's verstunken or garbage. It is not true. So, I want to ask you, honestly, is there anything in your life that you would have to face that you would not be able to face if you experience peace? Is there anything you couldn't get through if you were experiencing peace? I think that's a better way of saying this. Is there anything you could not get through if you were experiencing consistent peace? I think all of us would say no, there isn't, because that peace gives us the capacity to get through the hardest things. And peace is God's covenant to us of his truth. It tells us we are taking in pure energy. We are here, these thoughts we are selecting are pure, unadulterated truth. That is so spectacular. Because there's no downside to this, right? There's just no downside to it. Which is why I told you at the beginning, the goal is to get out of the vortex. And we need to change the context of what we're thinking about and just choose thoughts that bring us peace. Because when we do that, it opens our mind to the possibilities. In Isaiah 50 verse 1, we learn that God is the rock from whence we are hewn. In other words, we are naturally attuned to him. So when we clear the garbage out, guess what happens? We don't have to go finding answers. They naturally come to us because we've gotten rid of the static. It's just like tuning into a radio station. When we get rid of the static, light and truth naturally pours into our minds. That is spectacular. It's so amazing. Okay, I forgot to put that up there. There it is, peace. All right, so that Do we have it? I've got to see if I've got this.
It should be in there.
I think we're having an earthquake. Those are two of our dogs upstairs playing, just so you know. That's okay. So peace is the litmus test. In other words, Satan cannot counterfeit it. So therefore we know we're good, we're gold. It's everything. So let's just talk about this really quick. We've already talked about this, but if you want to take a picture, there you go. The key is really coming to have a commitment and a conviction of this truth, because otherwise that pollution is going to take you down because you'll be so convinced it's true. So let's take a look at what the scriptures tell us. Okay, who would like to read these? Here's the first place we ever see this is in Numbers. Anybody? Okay.
Wherefore say, behold, I give unto him my covenant of peace.
Okay. I love this one from Ezekiel.
Moreover, I will make a covenant of peace with them. It shall be an everlasting covenant with them, and I will place them and multiply them, and will set them my sanctuary in the midst of them forevermore.
So, you know what's interesting? Why aren't we teaching this to each other? Why do we allow ourselves to get into this negative stuff and not, I mean, it's in the scriptures. You know what I did one time, years ago? I thought, I wonder how many times God actually tells us about peace and tries to help us understand. So I took every scripture out of the scriptures. I took every verse, and guess how many pages there ended up being of scriptures telling us peace, 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 peace. 84 pages. 84 pages telling us just honor peace. You're going to be okay. So amazing. So amazing. Okay, this last one. Read this one, please.
Did I not speak peace to your mind concerning the matter? What greater witness can you have than from God?
I mean, like, perfect. Like, God says, if I speak peace to your mind, you know you have the truth. It could not be more clear. So amazing. Okay. When we experience peace, we invite the Holy Ghost or the Holy Spirit into our life, who is the inspirator, the revelator, the healer, so many things, who guides us and directs us. And when he moves us to charity, or what is charity? The pure love of God, which is behaviors, action. It's a verb, right? It is all this energy. God's love, this charity, is all this energy filling the immensity of space. It is, this light is constantly moving out to us. It is God's love. It's what gives us life. It's what brings miracles into our life. And the better we get at tapping into it, the more we find those miracles happening. So in other words, we could say inspired works. And our works just become good, better, best as we do this, instead of worrying and beating ourselves up and telling ourselves what we have to do, etc. So this is the natural outcome of positive thought choice. Okay? This is living after the manner of happiness. This is the natural outcome of this negative thought continuum. This is how we end up in a state of misery over and over and over again, despite our best efforts to do otherwise. So, my suggestion, to remember you are simply a conduit of God's light. Think of yourself like a light bulb. Plug into the power source, because this is how you will access your true personal power. It is so simple, and we can return to it again and again. It's awesome. So, what time is it?
You got 5 minutes.
I have 5 minutes? What the heck? Okay, so what I really like to talk about, and I left this to the end, but I wanted to talk to you about it because I want to show you again the science of a really interesting concept, which is repentance. Repentance is one of those things that really can cause people a lot of consternation. So I'm really hoping after tonight, no more consternation, that you realize what an amazing thing this is, and it's not what we thought it was at all. But first of all, I want you to think about, is this really repentance? This is what we tend to do. This is the apparently noble path, right? I need to recognize I did something wrong. I need to feel remorse. I need to make restitution. I need to confess. I need to never do that thing again. Where's the focus of attention on each one of those? Me, 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 me. And of course, how do we feel? We feel guilt. We feel like crap. So, boy, I just combined guilt and crap. That was good. I don't think I can do that again. So I'm sorry, but I heard it. Okay. The problem is, the problem with this is, we actually really struggle to ever actually fully turn away from what we want to turn away from, because we're always in that low energy state. And then we end up screwing up again, and we keep repeating, and after a while we give up hope. Because no matter how hard I try, it just doesn't get better. So I'm going to give you now. Well, this is low power mode, dude. We're going to make it to the very end. Okay. So here's a new definition of repentance. I think you'll like it. So I have this little visual in here. Literally, we're going to have to plug this in.
Is it 10% or 20?
It says, I don't know. It says low stuff.
That's okay. You're good.
Yeah. So look at this. Negative thought selection will move the thinker into lower energy states, which leads to your weaknesses manifesting. Another term we call that is sin. Okay, but it's our weaknesses. So you see it here, power source moves to misery. This type of thought choice moves the thinker away from God. Okay? So repentance, this is the Bible dictionary definition. Who would like to read that? Dr. Pepper lady, I knew you were going to do that. Will you read it?
To have a change of mind, a fresh view about God, about oneself, and about the world. A turning of mind and heart to God's truth.
Whoa! Thoughts are energy, and simply changing and looking back to God. So let's take a look at what that looks like. Thought choice refocused on the power source. Boy, this is really slow, and I think it's because you're dying. Battery. So, kind of easy, right? You take a look at that. It just is so simple. I change my thinking around, and guess what? I just start walking back into that light and truth. That's repentance. It's not this beat myself up, use the cat o' nine tails on myself. So the guilt is Satan's false substitute for remorse. Remorse is, I recognize I've done something wrong. I feel the sorrow of it. I want to do something different, so I look to God and let Him guide me. And through faith in Him, I find myself naturally becoming better and better. And I realize I did not do this. God is healing me, and that's so magnificent. So this is how the process works. So we're going to get everybody involved. Unless you don't want to be involved, then just say pass, okay? Because we're just going to go zip, 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 okay? So we're going to look at the difference between the outcome from looking to Christ versus looking at the light bulb, right? The apparently noble thinking, okay? So we're going to start with Luis, unless you want to do, here, Luis, you do this. I've done way too much talking.
All right.
So we're going to start with, I've done way too much thinking and speaking besides thinking. So you're going to start with Abby, then we're going to go boom, boom, boom. Okay, that's what we're going to do.
Right,
Do you want me to do that again?
Look to Christ. Look to yourself.
Just read the one, but that's okay. Look to Christ, which is the thought. Apparently noble thinking is?
Oh, I read the next one.
Yeah.
Look to yourself. Find peace.
The feeling.
Feel negative feeling.
Present possible solutions, study out in mind.
Try to pick the right answer based on all knowledge you have.
Wait for the answer to find you.
Live with fear and its attendant feelings while waiting anxiously to see if you are right.
That's really fun, isn't it? You guys have all experienced that, I know.
Enjoy the moment while waiting for the answer.
Rely on yourself, apparently noble.
Holy Ghost comes and brings you the answer.
You feel it is right because of peace.
Who's next?
Constantly question and second guess yourself about what is right.
You experience confidence, wisdom, high energy, etc.
You know it is right because the Spirit bears witness.
Act on weaknesses to avoid your fear of not being good enough, i.e. overachieve, underachieve, get angry, eating disorder, romance novels, pornography, etc.
You go and do that thing with peace and confidence. You act.
Fear who you are.
Find your true self.
Refuse to look at your destructive behavior.
Experience synergy.
Feel more and more hopeless about life.
Reject yourself.
It's hard to tell which side you want to pick, right? So there you have it. I just talk about the no loss guarantee. I really would encourage you guys to try this. So really it is simple as anytime you are not experiencing peace, you just say, oh, we don't have the rubber bands, do we? You didn't get the rubber bands. Okay, so you're just going to practice moving yourself, changing your thinking, back up, just refocus on God, His light and truth. I want all of you, really encourage you to do this. Work towards getting 10 thoughts that when you read them, they bring you peace. They can come from the scriptures, they can come from memes, they can come from lyrics to songs. It doesn't matter. Just when you read them, they bring you peace. So when you start to feel, and we're paying attention to our feelings, not our thoughts. The minute we pay attention to our thoughts, we're going to be deceived. We're going to really believe, no, this has got to be true. So we have to pay attention to our feelings, because you now know through science and through scripture how they are talking about the same thing, which is honor peace. So you have these 10 thoughts, you put them in your phone, and then when you start to feel that negativity come on, you're going to take your phone out and you're going to read those 10 thoughts. Because what does that do? Throws you into that upward positive spiral, the path of enlightenment, right? It's going to open your mind to possibilities. Okay, so that's what you're going to practice. So I want you to think about this. This comes with a no loss guarantee. Meaning, if you try this and it works, what have you gained? Freedom, peace, joy, happiness. But if on the other hand you try this and it doesn't work, have you lost anything? It is a no loss guarantee. You're not going to be any worse off than you are right now. So what would keep you from trying this and seeing the amazing fruit that comes from this one simple choice? Don't let laziness stop you. Don't let skepticism stop you. Try it, you'll like it. I promise, my friends. So that's the no loss guarantee. Let's go ahead and stop there, even though there's something else. So be a peace seeker. Just choose thoughts that are focused on God, His light and truth, because that is where you will find that joy and peace. That is where you'll find inspiration flowing naturally into your mind. That is where you'll find miracles happening. Really, they're real. They happen to us all the time. They're all there for us, but if we're not choosing to look to light and truth, we'll bypass them. But they're still there. So my friends, please take these ideas, apply them. Find the joy, peace, and happiness. I can tell you, when I first started this journey, I was someone who lived with depression, anxiety, most of the time. Every once in a while, my nose would come up a little bit above water, and I'd feel a little bit of happiness, and then just suck right back down into it. And a lot of anger, too. That was where I went, right? It was not a fun life. I had bouts of time in my life where I had horrible panic attacks. Starting from my childhood, of course, we didn't know what they were then, so I got punished for those. That was great. But of course, my parents didn't know. We didn't know what that was. But as I've learned these things, and really it has come to me through the most amazing ways, and I know that this is not my work, that this is something that the Lord has given to me, first for me, but then for all of you, and for others, so many others whose lives have changed. So I can tell you, it is possible to heal from depression, anxiety, fear. It really is possible. And to live a joy-filled life, to be through and done with guilt, etc., and anger, and all those other things that we don't like. It's really possible. I am a living example of that, truly. It is the best way to live. So just please, please try it. It will change your life, my friends. I'm so glad you came tonight. It was wonderful getting to be here with you. Luis, do you have any last comments you want to make?
No, well, yes, I guess. I also, I was telling my parents 5 years ago I was in this room in that seat. Before I even became a social work student, I learned this. It's because of how powerful it is that I'm up here now with a mic and with Valerie, co-teaching it with her. It's an amazing thing. And so before you go, there's a couple things that we want to get out of the way. On your way out, there's these sheets. Fill them out. We're not going to hunt you down if you're like super honest. We do want the feedback that comes with these seminars because we need to. Every time we go, we sit down, we think, what can we do better? And so you guys are kind of the audience that tells us. And so on that sheet, there's going to be questions. How do we do? How are the presenters? Answer honestly. Like, really, we won't get offended. We really appreciate it.
We might cry a little, but we'll get
just
over
a
it.
little bit. Well, we'll go back to that positive thought energy, right?
Enjoy. We're crying in joy.
Yeah, we're
right?
crying in joy. The second thing is there's going to be a name and email. If you are interested in attending her Universal Truth Seminar, which starts next week, it's a 6-week seminar every Wednesday from 7 to 9 like this, or if you can't, you can go to the morning session from Thursday morning from 10 to 12 if that works for you. If you're interested, just write it on there and we'll get a hold of you and give you more details on that and what happens with that.
Well, we'll just tell you really quick. It's $250 a person. That one does cost. But if you bring a friend, then it's, or a spouse, then it's $225 a person. So.
And it's 14 hours worth of material. If you sit one-on-one with Valerie, it's a lot more expensive than that. So it's a steal. So we really, really hope you'd come. Thank you for coming. And so, yeah, that'll be it.
Thank you. Thank you.